Good morning. This is the Citrus County Planning and Development Commission public hearing for March 2nd, 2023. If you would like to join us at this time, I invite you to please stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Dear Lord, please give us the grace to be understanding, patient, and tolerant. With these attributes, we can conduct our work in a manner which will be pleasing to Thee, our county, and its residents. In the Lord's name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. For the courtesy of the applicants, the board, and those around you, if you would please silence any devices at this time. I want to have a little housekeeping here. We have a pretty full room, so we want to make sure that we have full respect for each speaker who comes to the podium today. So cheering, jeering, all of those things would be, I would hope that you would refrain from that because it can be distracting to the speakers. May we have the roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning. The following Planning and Development Commission members are present this morning. Stacy Worthington, Chair. Richard Barnes, First Vice Chair. James Royce, Second Vice Chair. Timothy Gilbert, Alternate. David Bramblett, Michael Facemeyer, Kurt Stone, and School Board Representative Chuck Dixon.
Thank you. Also, commissioners, I forgot to mention, if you would please speak into your microphone so the audience can hear you today. If any person decides to appeal any decision made by the commission with respect to any matter considered at this hearing, he or she will need a record of the proceedings, and for such purpose, he or she may need to ensure that a verbatim record of the proceedings is made, which record includes testimony and evidence upon which the appeal is to be based. During the public input portions of the meeting, individuals are given 3 minutes and representatives of an organization are given 5 minutes. When anyone wishing to speak comes to the podium, please complete a yellow form and hand it to the recording secretary. Please print your name, address, and the number of the application for which you are speaking on the form. The yellow forms can be found at the podium by the door. If representing an organization, a letter of authorization must accompany the speaker or be on file. Comments will be limited to the topic being heard. Please state your name and give your address for the taped record. At this time, we would like to offer an opportunity to come forward and address the commission on any issues that you wish. This is not specifically regarding the applications, but if you have any other matters. Anyone? Open to the public. Okay, seeing none. We have no minutes today to approve. Do we have any staff announcements?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Attorney, would you like to do ex parte communications?
Good morning, Commissioners. With regard to the applications you're going to consider this morning, I don't think we have a court reporter here. Yeah. So with regard to both applications you're going to consider this morning, have you had any ex parte communications? And we'll start at the end with Commissioner Dixon.
No, ma'am, none.
No.
Site visits on both.
None.
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 Site visits on both?
None.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, if the applicant is present for PUD-22-06, Brenda McKenzie, please come forward to the podium and may we have the introduction.
Yes, good morning. This application is a request to establish a planned unit development to allow for one dwelling unit per 5 acres in the agricultural district. This is an aerial view of the subject property. This is a view of the subject property. This is looking north on South Lecanto Highway. This is looking south on South Lecanto Highway. This is looking across South Lecanto Highway at the Withlacoochee State Forest. This is the most recent site plan submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for scheduling me first today. For the record, my name is Brenda McKenzie. I'm with McKenzie Permitting and Consulting. My address is 7232 East Gospel Island Road in Inverness. And I had the pleasure of dealing with the McClellans in regards to this project. It's PUD 2206. A little background on this, the McClellans own the MB Dairy Farm that's adjacent to this. They have purchased this property that's just shy of 20 acres. I think it's 19.98 acres. And the two brothers are wanting to split it in half so that they can build their forever homes here. There are some older mobile homes that are being removed, so there was already 2 homes on the one parcel. And in order for them to build their 2 homes on here based on zoning, we need to divide it. We have a building permit that's applied for the northern lot, and it's approved. And we didn't have to have this split because we could put the one home on there without the split. But we're looking forward to the board seeing favorably about passing this PUD 2206. Thank you.
Thank you. Staff, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Not at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Board, do you have any questions of the applicant?
Nope.
Okay, seeing none. Thank you, Ms. McKenzie.
Thank you.
Now we will have the staff presentation.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Miranda.
Okay, the applicant is requesting to establish a PUD in order to subdivide a 19-acre parcel in the agricultural district. The subject property is located on South Lecanto Highway. The surrounding area is predominantly conservation and agriculture. At one point, the subject property was a part of the abutting property to the west, now owned by FDEP. There seems to be some parcels in the general area that are less than 20 acres, like the subject property. The property has had 2 manufactured homes as well as a shed and 2 pole barns. Here's a location of one of the where one of the mobile homes used to be. And here's the other mobile home. The applicant states that this home will be removed. There is a pending building permit in-house for a single-family residence. And here's one of the pole barns as mentioned, and another pole barn looking south at the property. Here's looking west at the FDP property, and here's looking back towards the pole barn. You can see there appears to be specimen trees on site, as well as also possible wetland areas. Originally, when talking to the applicant, they voiced flooding concerns at the south end of the property, but they didn't think there were wetlands. When staff went out there, we suspected otherwise. And here's an aerial photo from 2021 from the property appraiser's website that shows just how far the water has went in the past. Also, the green areas just south of the parcel are designated wetlands on the property appraiser's website. Here's the proposed master plan. The applicant proposes a new home on each parcel. The LDC requires at least 10 acres per parcel in the agricultural district. By right, with the PUD, they need at least 5-acre parcels with 50% open space. So you can see the applicant has provided a general area of where that open space will be. The 19-acre parcels will be split into an 8-acre parcel, which would be the north parcel, and then a 10.9-acre parcel for the south parcel. Now, if there are any wetlands on the site, they may only count for 50% of that open space requirement. The applicant is required to preserve the open space by either conservation easement or through another mechanism as outlined in the comprehensive plan. This will all need to be delineated by a final plat submittal. The master plan appears to meet setbacks and ISR per the Land Development Code. Staff has no concerns with this proposal and finds the application consistent with the Land Development Code and comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Ms. McKenzie, do you have any questions for staff? Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, Miranda, board, do you have any questions?
I have a question, and it's not really related. Well, it's related, but it's sort of, I'm just kind of inquiring. The wetland may only account for a maximum of 50% of the open space requirement. Can you tell me why that is? Like, what if this particular, I'm just curious, like if that wetlands was larger and it included more than 50%?
Then they'll have to expand their open space as well.
Right, so is wetlands not considered like an open space?
50%.
Is it like a conservation area, an easement? I'm just curious where that rule is in there and why is it there?
Right. Having not created it, I'll try to explain why I think it's there.
Okay.
It's because this is a very special request. Normally, you have to meet zoning of 10 acres. They're not. So in order to subdivide, they need to show that they're having more open space. If you just say, I'm not going to build on wetlands, you already have to do that. You've done nothing to offer something special to support that you need to be able to have that extra density. So in having the extra density, I'm taking some of my open space I could build on, and I'm not. I'm going to make it conservation. Putting it in wetlands, you have to do that anyway. So it's absolutely nothing. Does that
Right.
make sense?
I mean, the only thing I was just saying is like a wetland is like a conservation area anyway.
It is. So it would be nothing. Every wetland could do this. Every wetland lot could do this because they can't build on it anyway.
Right.
So this is saying I'm going to give up more. I'm going to give up some of my uplands
Okay.
to get this.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. I was just curious. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Miranda.
Thank you.
The public portion of the meeting will now be opened. If there is anyone present in favor of the application who would like to speak, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, you will have 3 minutes to speak, and members of an organization will have 5 minutes. When speaking on this application, please address the board. If you have any documents that you want to be entered into the record, please provide a copy to the recording secretary. Is anyone here in favor of the application? Anyone? Going once, twice, 3 times in favor? Okay. Is anyone opposed to this application? Going once, twice, okay. All right, now we will close the public portion of this application and bring the discussion back to the board. Anyone want to start?
For the purpose of a motion,
Thank you.
were there conditions on this one? 4. Yeah, all right. The Planning and Development Commission finds application number PUD-22-06 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval with the conditions of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence, testimony presented, and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
We
Second.
have a first by Commissioner Bramlett and a second by Commissioner Facemeyer. Any discussion? I would just like to say this was a no-brainer and pretty common sense application. My only regret is that we don't have an administrative process to kind of, and I understand that we do not, and this is the process, but I am in favor also. So can we have a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, if the applicant is present for AA-22-07, Michael Wilburn for Sweetwater Homes, and may we have the introduction?
Yes, thank you. This application proposes to amend the Oak Village Master Plan on 49.1 acres from single-family residential to multifamily residential. The site is bordered by Village Center Circle Center and Village Center Drive. The site is currently vacant and abuts the Oak Village Bath and Tennis Club. This is a view from the site looking east. This is the proposed location of one of the entrances to the project. This is an existing entrance to the Bath and Tennis Club. This is the proposed location of one entrance, shown on the left side of this photo. This is the interior of the site, which is heavily wooded. And this is the site plan submitted by the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Dr. Wilburn.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Wilburn, Local Engineering, Inc., professional address P.O. Box 938, Floral City, Florida, 34436. This morning, I'm assisting Mr. Ponticos in this Atlas Amendment application that is currently before you. This particular property has a long-standing history of appearing before county boards and with a history of changes associated with them. And so I've asked for some additional speakers to assist in my presentation this morning. To keep it brief, I would like to break this presentation into three components. The first being an introduction into the concept plan you are looking at. The second provides you a history of this parcel and how things have came to be the way they are now. And then conclude with the staff findings and compatibility. So first, an introduction into this concept plan. If you've had a chance to look at this plan or are looking at it now, you'll notice that this parcel is approximately 49.2 acres in size, a property that is completely surrounded by existing roadways, as you can see in some of those pictures showed also. Its closest neighbor is an existing community center for Sugarloaf Woods, which has been carved out of this property many years ago, which you can see that gray area there just northeast of that largest pond. So I want to talk about some infrastructure utilities. The property is serviced by both water and sewer, and the supply for which is already available. Much of the infrastructure to this site is already in place via previous master plans and construction plans for utility design, and therefore it'll have minimal impacts to any off-site residents to do the construction work to connect to utilities. And I believe every single one of the pictures that you saw just a minute ago looking northeast, and you can see manholes in the roadway. The utilities are already completely surrounding this site and are adequate in size and were designed to handle this development and then some, as you'll hear soon. Stormwater. Excuse me. This proposed site is currently within a closed basin, and in addition to being in a closed basin, it is also the bottom of the bowl. In other words, this site naturally has no discharge to any other off-site parcel. It receives waters from off-site parcels. And so that means that there will be no flow existing now, which leaves the site in a storm event. And in the post conditions, swift mud regulations, as well as the county, will have to retain that same amount of water that comes in and then some based on the increase. And so that should eliminate and would eliminate any type of concerns from any residents, any concerns from other people in the neighborhood or area that a development will cause impacts to them in terms of stormwater. Because we will have to account for not only the stormwater that leaves sites and comes to us now, but also the increase in stormwater that's generated by this site, which, as you can see, there's quite a few ponds on this parcel, on this development, and that's a big reason why. There's no place to send the water, it all comes to us. And so again, in terms of stormwater, it'll have no impact on surrounding areas. In fact, be a benefit to surrounding areas. Density. In your staff report, you'll notice that the applicant originally submitted a plan that had 290 units on this same site. After some consideration, we have come up with the concept plan that you see before you, which requests 250 units. In doing this, it allowed us to create a third entrance, which you'll see to the south. It also allowed us to have an increase in green space. And one of the things, it may be hard to see on this concept plan, but if you look at the one in front of you, you may notice that there's a darker green area that surrounds the entire site. That is a 25-foot natural buffer that we're proposing to leave in place. It's existing and it's dense. And you probably see from your site visits, those of you who made it, and also from the pictures that you just saw, that's going to be an enhanced feature to this parcel. In fact, many areas of this roadway you'll notice have a larger right-of-way. And so not only do you have an increased area of grass between the existing roadway around to the parcel, but then you'll throw on a natural buffer of 25 feet. And in addition to that, beyond that 25 feet is about 27 to 30 feet in most areas before you'll have your first structure. So over 50 foot of buffer from the property line, not from the center line of the road, but from the property line is what we're proposing. And this increased buffer, we believe, will be an amenity not only to the surrounding area, but also to the citizens of this development. So I want to talk about the layout for a minute. The units appear on the site plan in distinct areas or clusters. This is done in order to provide a product that is aesthetically pleasing and also enhance the green space. There is a proposed clubhouse on site, a pool. There's internal walking trails throughout, which are not shown, but I believe staff, Ms. Katu, may talk about around the ponds, around the perimeter of that vegetative 25-foot buffer we just mentioned. The layout also provides 3 gated entrances to enhance the security as well as the luxury feel of this product. The retention areas, As you'll notice, I mentioned we are the bottom of the bowl, but rather than have one large retention area, we have purposely and intentionally designed those to be features of this development. And so they're smaller, they're spread out, and they'll serve as almost an amenity to this development as well. The roadways that service this project are all proposed to be access drives. They're private drives with no public access. They're not public roads. There's no public right-of-ways. They will all be privately owned. And as I already mentioned, it is planned to have gated entrances on all three entrances. Impacts. This site has 250 units that we're proposing over this almost 50 acres. And as you can see from this plan, there's a lot of green and there's a lot of blue on this proposed plan right now. The proposed plan is asking for a 28% impervious, which is well under the impervious ratio that is allowable. So again, there's a lot of green space, there's a lot of open space. It is a great product that we're putting forward. I want to talk about the units. I believe that you guys have in your packet an example of what the townhome units would look like. That architectural style is similar. It is a product that's being built somewhere down south. And so I see it right there. So while that product is similar, the design of these products have not been 100% completed yet, but it will be in line with that architectural style. The houses and the villas would be the same, the duplexes. That way they have a consistent theme throughout the entire project. These are, as you can see from the plan and the architectural rendering, these are not cookie cutter builder grade establishment, but upscale townhomes, villas, and single family residences. And as you will find in the staff report, these units are not on individual lots, and you can kind of see there that it's not a platted subdivision. It's intended to be designed and owned by an entity and not be sold off. So everything on site will be privately owned and maintained, which means the owner, and this is important, means the owner has a vested interest in maintaining a high standard for the development and a high standard for those who live in there, which will also have a positive impact on the surrounding areas. So at this time, I would like to ask, that we move to the second part of our presentation, which is a history of this parcel and the surrounding parcels of how we got where we are and what we're trying to accomplish. And to do that, I would like to ask Mr. Steve Ponticos to come forward and provide us with that history. He's going to be talking about some exhibits that I thought would be on the screen. That's my mistake, but I believe you guys have those in your handout. And so he'll be discussing those with you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Steve Ponticos, 7 Bursanima Court West, Sugar Mill Woods. I know most of you. I've been a resident in Sugar Mill Woods for 47 years. In fact, when I accepted a position with the original developer, Punta Gorda Developers, I had just graduated with a real estate degree from Florida State University in 1975. And I think Nancy and I were the 3rd residents in Sugar Mill Woods. I worked for Sugar Mill Woods from 1975 until 1989, when myself and my other fellow workers formed Sweetwater Homes. And so we all got together and formed Sweetwater Homes. And between Sweetwater Homes and Sugar Mill Woods, that group has been responsible for roughly 4,200 units that have been built in Sugar Mill Woods. A brief history, I thought we would have a map, but in your packet you do have a map. It's listed as number 1. You'll see it's a map of Cypress Village. If you look in the bottom right-hand corner of that, you will see 2 things. You will see Sugar Mill Woods was set up as a PUD, planned unit development. The idea came and was thought of. A very successful new town concept that was done in Georgia called Peachtree City. And that was basically a model for Sugar Mill Woods. Sugar Mill Woods was 15,439 acres of property, and it was divided into 6 villages, each village with its own village center. They surrounded a 1,200-acre town center. Now, on your right-hand corner, if you see on your map, you'll see that depiction of the 6 villages. I don't know if you see it, if you'll see it there. And in that, right now, as we all know, Sugar Mill Woods consists of Cypress Village and Oak Village. Meadow Run and Orange Village were sold to what is now the Dunes. Pinewood Village, Palm Village, and the 1,200-acre town center were sold to the state via the Carl program and are now part of the Withlacoochee State Forest. When Sugar Mill Woods was set up, and when you look at this, the first thing that you'll look at, this is a plat map that I have. This was given out to every prospective purchaser in Sugar Mill Woods. It still is given out to every purchaser who has a realtor who has taken the time to keep up the maps. This is a local plat map that is given. And if you look in the right-hand corner, right next to where I had the villages, you'll see above, you'll see a legend. And on that legend, it will show the different colors. And this was to give any prospective purchaser who came into Sugar Mill Woods an idea of where they were buying and what was going to be built around them. And as you will see, the dark green was golf course. The light green was nature belt. We call that green belt now. The yellow was single family. The orange is multifamily. The red is commercial. And there was some blue, like you see on the screen here, but it was on the lakes on the golf course of Cypress Village. Now, when you look on your map, the very first, I don't know the order in your book, but the first one should show you, like, you'll see it just like this. The original plat that came out when they got everything approved, I think everything was approved September of 73 and 74, first sales started. Every lot that was what we called an estate lot was half acre or larger, facing on the golf course, was zoned multifamily. And that was on the plat, and you will see on the plat, the orange signifies the multifamily. This is in Cypress Village. As soon as the company started putting the roads in, the management decided they did not want multifamily at the entrance. So if you flip to the next sheet, you will see a picture looking down the main boulevard, and those lots were changed from multifamily to single family. And we did that on both sides in order to not have multifamily right in people's face when they came into the community. As you go down that road, you will see there still is orange, and as we'll talk in a few minutes about what has been built on those units. Now, if you look at your other sheets, you will flip on and you will see that throughout the community, yeah, if you can hold that mic, you will see on the inside of the golf course, it was orange, that was multifamily. All around the Pine Golf Course, all the lots were orange, and they were all multifamily. Now, if you continue to look in there, you will see a new map, which is the very last map. This is a current map. You will notice that almost all that orange is gone, and it's been rezoned to single family. And the reason for it is, thank you, Mike. Over the years, everything was driven by sales. And when we first opened Sugar Mill Woods, the idea of multifamily was basically a second home product. It was a product that was going to be offered to people who were coming down from Michigan, upstate New York, other areas, who wanted to spend the winter in our area. So they were desiring lower maintenance, something they could lock up, and that's what was built. In those days, multifamily, I know the county has changed the codes, but in those days in Sugar Mill, it was 12 units per acre. And from 1979 till 1985, there were built 7 projects of multifamily. Now, the most popular one that everybody knows is Cypress Run condos. They are right on the main boulevard. There's 90 units on 7.5 acres, roughly 11.6 units per acre. As we go around the golf course in Sugar Mill today, you will see on the third fairway of the Cypress Golf Course, there's 3 projects. They're called the Fairway Condos, Third Fairway 1 and Third Fairway 2, also roughly 12 units per acre. You go over to the Pine Golf Course and you drive around, you will see pine wood and you'll see springwood condos, and they are all roughly 12 units per acre, all built within a certain time period. Well, the demand in Sugar Mill we knew was for single family, so we started converting the larger lots to single family, from multifamily to single. We found that was a demand. We were not thinking of what might transpire in the future. we were not thinking that there would be a demand or need for smaller square footages. In fact, we were doing the opposite. We were increasing the minimum square footage in day one in Sugar Mill Woods was 1,200 square feet of living area. From day one until present, the minimum house you can build in Sugar Mill Woods is 1,900 square feet of living area. We didn't think, none of us thought, that multifamily would not be a second home, but it would be a downsizing opportunity. We didn't realize that people would actually live in the area and live in their house as long as they did. So what we found now is people living 20, 25, 30 years, 45 years in the same house in Sugar Mill Woods. And as people get older, we're finding this throughout the country, people are living longer, they want to stay in the community. They want to stay with their friends, they want to stay with their churches, but now they have no opportunities. They want to downsize, they want to go down to one car, they want to go down to a smaller maintenance facility, and they don't have it. They have to go, if they can find one of the older condos that were built in the 70s or early 80s, that's great, but that's a dated product, has nothing of the new features that you're seeing in new buildings. They can go there. Or they have to, sadly, if they lose a spouse and decide everything's too much, they have to sell their house and they leave Sugar Mill, have to go live with a child, go into an ALF, go into a nursing home. They don't have the opportunity for downsizing. When we bought the Village Center from the developer, and it was in the 90s, the developer was leaving, we purchased the Village Center. Everybody knew when looking at the plat maps, Mike, can you hold this up again? This is the Oak Village plat map, and just like the Cypress, this plat map was handed out to all prospective, and this is the same thing. It's always shown commercial as the Village Center. When we bought it, we knew that there would probably never be commercial built inside Sugar Mill Woods, other than the club and the recreational facilities. There really wouldn't be. When the comp plan amendment passed, I think it was 1985 in the county, the commercial nodes came up on US 19, and so there was evident that any commercial activity would be geared to US 19. So when we bought that property, in those days, in the 90s, we were thinking, okay, what can we do? We know it's not going to be commercial. Let's go ahead and build estate lots there. So that was the first thing that we designed, was very large lots, very exclusive. And we did that. We got that approved by the county, I think it was 2000. And then by 2005, things were changing. We started realizing there was need for different products. So we went and got approved a mixed use product, and we're all ready to get going on that. And then the recession hit. And we all know from 2008 to 2016, almost no residential construction happened in Citrus County. I mean, all of us know, and there's three reasons for it. I don't have to get into that here, but we all know what happened. It was a killer. We went down from 3,200 permits down to 139 permits, and that was evident for almost 7-8 years that it happened in Citrus County. We land banked it. We got rid of it. It went back to the original zoning because we dropped paying anything on it at that point, and we didn't think about it until over a year ago to say, okay, let's readdress it. So when we readdressed it, we looked at, okay, what is needed in Sugar Mill? We know that it's not commercial. What other concepts can we do? We could do residential, and a plan we had is we could take that circle that you see there, and we could have houses all facing, really easy to have the driveways coming off of Cypress Circle, and then we could on the inside have more houses. That's one option. But there's thousands of lots in Sugar Mill Woods. What there isn't is any multifamily. By us changing 241 acres of multifamily that was in the original plat to single family, we eliminated 2,800 multifamily possibility units. We didn't know that. We didn't realize as we were going. We were making sales. We were converting multifamily to single family. In fact, when you look at this drawing, you'll look right across the street. Mike, if you can hold this again. Right across the street, you will see 7 orange lots. Even in Oak Village, the developer had planned for multifamily. The developer had those 7 lots were slated for 66 multifamily units. Well, in the 2000s, we decided that they would be better offered estate-size lots, so we converted them to single family. So when we came up with this plan, and again, Mike said that we came up with a first presentation, we sent it to the county, and we were just not happy with it. We took it back. The idea was to save a green belt around the entire circle. The idea was to make it something that could be very low impact and gate it so that it could be a gated. And we wanted a mixed use in there. We wanted different type of units, different size units, knowing that our target market was going to be age bracket 70s on up. Who knows, it could be middle 80s, it could be 90s, we don't know. But our target market was residents of Sugar Mill who wanted to downsize. But they wanted to continue the relationships that they had already had. Stay with their friends. And we're seeing that throughout the country, that planning has just not happened. And we have the perfect place to do that. If you'll notice, that road all the way around this village center is designed as a boulevard around that whole thing. This planning was from day one that the developer got this approved. They were planning on that to be a high density area commercial. What we're talking about is very low density. I've heard comments that 250 units is going to cause nothing but traffic jams. Exactly the opposite. Our target market is to people who are downsizing. They're downsizing on size of place that they want to maintain. They're downsizing on cars and vehicles, and that's trips. And in evidence of this, you can go to Cypress Run condos that have 90 units right on the main boulevard, and you could sit there all day and count the number of trips, and you'll see very few. The target market that is for this is for what's going to happen for an alternative for people who want to downsize. And we really do feel that this is the best fit. We've done a lot of planning. Architecturally, we want it to fit in with new styles. We want the plans to have all the new features designed for the people that we're looking for. So I do appreciate you listening, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Mike, just 1 second. Audience, at the beginning of the meeting today, I asked you please if you could refrain from the crosstalk and the kind of chatter, because it gets difficult to hear the person that is speaking. And to the members of the audience who are making hand gestures at me about time for the applicant is allowed to present their case. It is the public input portion where there will be time constraints. So thank you. Please continue.
Thank you, Steve. Just want to reiterate 2 things. The first one is, I want to reemphasize that in the moving forward in the production of homes in Sugar Mill, the fact is that there is about 2,800 less units than were originally proposed even now that have been removed and reduced. And then the second half of that coin is this development originally was designated as commercial. And so in our land development code, you're allowed to build 6 units per acre in a GNC zoning. We're not asking for 6 units, we're asking for less than that. And so we're not asking for anything more intense than originally was planned for this. The infrastructure, the roadways, all of this development was planned and designed for that. So I'd like to move to the third area of this presentation, and that is the staff report and compatibility. The staff report provided by Ms. Katu summarizes 10 different categories that you'll notice. I believe it's A through J in the report, where this application has been checked against a comprehensive plan for compatibility. In all 10 of those categories, the proposed development that you see before you is consistent with the comprehensive plan. Additionally, the staff report also mentions that this application is not seeking any deviations from the standards that are provided within the Land Development Code, and we're not. We're not asking for any special exceptions. We're not asking for any deviations. Fully willing to comply with the Land Development Code and the requirements. And lastly, in that staff report, This quote is stated: "This application is consistent with the policies of the comprehensive plan." So there are many conditions that you'll find, suggested conditions for this Atlas Amendment, some of which are presented for historical knowledge, and I believe Ms. Coutu will probably speak to that with previous master plans. This application, again, is not seeking any type of special conditions. However, as a point of clarification, and maybe this can be resolved with Ms. Coutu when her presentation happens, but I believe condition number 8 should have been removed with some of the other verbiage. If not, I'm still okay with it being in there because we don't have any public roads, public right-of-ways, but just wanted to point that out. And so on behalf of Mr. Ponticos and this project, I want to thank you guys for listening, and either he or I are available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there any questions from staff?
Yeah, just a few. Thank you. First one is you did touch on it a little bit. Can you elaborate a little bit? Because I know a lot of the public input talked about rental housing and affordable housing, and you mentioned the word upscale. Can you elaborate what you're proposing here?
Yes, so I know they don't have the benefit of the imagery, architectural style that you guys see. Mr. Ponticos just affirmed and discussed some of the quality and styles that are going to go into these houses. I mentioned in my presentation they're not builder grade. However, they are going to be rental based. They are going to have that target market that they're looking for to provide those senior citizens with an ability to downsize, not have maintenance. All of lawn care will be provided in this amenity. There's a lot of things like that, but they will be rentals, as you wisely have mentioned. But there have been zero discussion about any type of affordable housing program. In fact, the complete opposite. Is that?
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
fine. That's a lot of the public input was on that. Thank you. That's all, Madam
And
Chairman.
again, it's going to be gated. It has a lot of upscale features, and because it's owned by one entity, they'll obviously they'll have a desire to keep it nice and protect the integrity of what you're looking at.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board?
I got one.
Mr. Royce?
You mentioned in your presentation that these properties would not be sold off. What does that mean?
So that's a good question. There's no plat. There's no plat. There's no mechanism to sell off. There's no legal descriptions which would break anything off. It's one legal description with all of those houses that you see as one project, one entity ownership. Their tax bill will be one alt key, one. So there's no mechanism that exists for them to be able to sell anything off. It's not platted. It's not condoed. There are other developments in our county which are the same way, where it's just a large project that are rentals.
Who will maintain ownership?
I guess whoever owns it at the time.
The builder.
The developer, I would say. Yeah. I mean,
And it's going to be gated.
Yes, sir. You have 3 access points that you see there, and all 3 of those access points will be gated.
So the single-family homes that are on the south side by the DRA
Yes.
and the apartments up on the top would all be within the same gated community.
Yes. Yes, they are. And you kind of, the clubhouse, because of the contours, it's not exactly in the middle, but you'll notice the clubhouse is kind of centralized to the whole development where the pool is.
How do you envision trash removal? There's going to be apartments, so does that mean there'll be dumpsters?
No, not planning to have any dumpsters. Each unit will be its own address. Each unit will have its own trash can.
At the curb?
Yes.
That's all for now.
Board, any other questions? Commissioner Facemeyer?
Michael, was there any traffic study done? Basically, my question is not, did you do a traffic study, but can you compare the traffic to the proposed project versus what could have been if this were really built out as a town center with retail and professional and other things?
Yes, we reached out to Way Engineering out of South Florida, who has been used many times in appearing before this board and the county commission, to not only study the internal traffic here, to not only study the impact of what these houses will do to the major exit points, but also what that would do to traffic on, for example, 98, which is a little bit further away from this, but analyze it nonetheless. And as a town center, as a GNC project, as a and how these roadways were originally designed. And you'll notice it is a boulevard around it. It's a wider right of way. And because all of the lots that have been mentioned in Mr. Ponticos's presentation that were originally originally multifamily have been reduced off, many of them to single family. This change was noted as negligible just because the system was designed to handle so much more, and that so much more will never happen because that 2,800 plus homes will never be built. And that's in addition to this, not even considering this. So yes, we have done that, and the county engineering department, we've actually talked to them too when we first started developing this, and everything that they have mentioned, us being able to supply, we have no problem doing that in terms of a study, in terms of a written report.
Thank you.
I have a question, Michael, to elaborate on what Commissioner Royce was talking about with respect to ownership. So all the properties inside here will be rental? Do I understand?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Michael, I have a question. Are there any other rental properties in Sugar Mill Woods? Audience, please, I am asking a question of the applicant. I understand that you're very passionate about what you're here to speak about, but I would ask you to be respectful.
No, Stacy, there is, no, but the thought process on this whole thing was, in order to come up with a mixed use, if you look throughout the country, the idea that, and you got to picture where this is going. You have an ALF, which is basically a rental unit. There is no step from home ownership to after the home ownership before you go to an ALF. This is something that is now going throughout the country, that you're targeting an age bracket that is specific. Certain people who want to downsize, they are going into a high-end product. This is a high-end product. We're not spending money with the gated community and making the designs that are being done without making it high-end. But they're paying a monthly fee. So yes, it is handled that way, but it's all controlled, deed restricted inside the area on what can be done, the quality control of the maintenance. You're talking a very high-end product, and that is the new thought. No, it hasn't been done. You're going to see more and more of this throughout the county and through the country, because that is what is needed. There's a gap there. Now, you go the other way and take this and make everything single family, and go ahead and just change everything to single family. The amount of trips and the amount of traffic, and you're not serving a purpose. You're not gaining what is needed. And how many people right now have we seen that we built a house for, and they lose a spouse, and now they come in and they want to downsize. They necessarily don't want to buy. If they had an option, there's lots of houses for rent in Sugar Mill, and there's condos that are for rent in Sugar Mill, but we're talking one owner is going to own the entire complex and rent it out that way. So it is, I hope I answered your question.
And you mentioned deed restrictions. That was actually my next question. Obviously, most of the properties are deed restricted. You're going to have a separate deed restricted for this.
We haven't written them yet, but we expect them to be mirroring what is in Sugar Mill Woods right now. Again, no vehicles overnight, no clotheslines, no nuisances. And one thing you're finding also, Stacy, is that like Cypress Run condos, they don't allow pets. They don't allow cats or dogs. So there's 90 units there that's not an option. Somebody loses a spouse and now they're told to get rid of their animal as well. That's ridiculous. That's why this product is so important. And the quality of it, anything that we've touched, we live in Sugar Mill Woods. This is our home. All of us who own the company, we've lived here. You take any Sweetwater house that has been built, combined to all the other builders who are coming in here, and there's a difference in what we do and how we design it and lay it out. So that part of it, and the idea of gating it, we wanted it to feel that it was secure and safe, and that's the idea with going with the gates.
Another question would be, I know we have the picture, but we didn't have renderings or anything of the product that you're thinking about. So are we talking 1-story, 2-story?
They're basically all one story. There will be some townhouses, but they're basically all one story for easy use, handicap design, designed so that they get easy access for what the need is. When you're targeting a certain market, you want to make sure that you have wheelchair accessibility in hallways and closets and to make it easy. I mean, it's something that is direly needed that we just don't have. And the exclusivity of it, when I hear that it's going to be low income, that's not the market. That's not the target market at all. This is not what we're doing. That this is designed for, I'm not going to say upscale, but that's the idea, is more of a higher end product for what is needed, consistent with what's in Sugar Mill Woods right now.
Okay. Board, any other questions?
I have one.
Commissioner Royce.
First of all, there are dogs in Cypress Run. That's just wrong, okay? I know a person that lives there, has a dog, has for probably 10 years. Secondly, is there gonna be an HOA? Will the people vote these regulations? No.
No.
So the management will form an association and manage it like a business, collect rent, and take care of expenses.
That's correct. The ownership will be the ones who decide on the restrictions, which you've already heard. The surrounding area will serve as a minimum for those restrictions, what's existing now in Sugar Mill. But it'll be a part of the lease that everyone signs up for. These are the rules, these are the regulations.
Mr. Pontico's mentioned age.
Commissioner Royce, can you speak into your mic, please?
I'm sorry. Is this going to be age restricted? You're
No,
targeting older folks, and of which I resemble. But is it going to be over 55, no children? Is that what it's going to be?
So you can target something by your design, but it's also smart not to prohibit. So there won't be, as of right now, we have no plans to make any type of age restriction, no.
Okay.
Can I answer a question too on Cypress Run condos?
Yeah.
You are correct. If it was grandfathered in and if it's a therapy dog, it's allowed. It is not in the deed restrictions in Cypress Run.
Okay.
That's our, I mean,
I don't believe that's factual. I don't. But the dog that I'm familiar with is not.
And it very well can be. If it's a therapy dog, it's allowed.
Yeah.
But when a realtor now goes to sell a condo in there, they have to disclose that they are not allowed to have pets. Is that not correct? So that is a disclosure you have to make right now.
Got it. Okay.
Good.
I'm good.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, thank you. Now we'll have the staff presentation.
Good morning. All right, this is an application to change approximately 49 acres in Sugar Mill Woods Oak Village from single family to multifamily. They are proposing up to 250 residential units. A bit of housekeeping for the audience behind me. This is the first of 2 hearings for this application. This board will be asked to make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners for their final decision. That meeting has not been set yet. You have a lot of public input that you received on this application. All that public input will move forward to the Board of County Commissioners. You do not need to send them again, but if you have more input, of course, you can certainly do so. So this is an area of the property. You've seen this already a couple times. I'm going to come back to this, but what I wanted to point out on this particular, well, I'm going to come back to it in a moment. This is a master plan. I'm going to zoom in a little bit on this one. This is a northern area, and I can hear from the board's comments that you did pick up on the fact that the triplex, quadplex, et cetera units are clustered on the north side of the property. This also, with the zoom in, does show you the 25-foot natural buffer they are proposing around the site. Dr. Wilburn talked about pedestrian amenities. You absolutely need to have that. I know he had some concern with proposed condition number 8, which says sidewalks. Sidewalks would be allowed or required if these were roads. They're not, they're drives. However, they do need pedestrian paths. So the second part of that particular condition says, but if they're drives, which we weren't sure when we wrote the staff report, if they're drives, they also have to have pedestrian access to the amenities. So they are going to have to put in some kind of paths to get from any of these remote areas to the amenities and throughout the project. This is the southern part of the area, proposing the single-family dwellings. Again, you can see the 25-foot buffer proposed. So you heard a lot about history. This is Oak Village, and this was the original Oak Village. Of course, I can't really say original. Mr. Panico certainly knows more history than I have. We came into play late 70s. This is what we received at that time. The red is commercial. The Village Center site was completely commercial. The Bath and Tennis Club came along. And I have a summary of a table on page 4 that talks about the history. You can see in 1989, this was changed from commercial to single-family attached. The density at that particular point, if we remove the Bath and Tennis Club parcel, which is not part of this application, was about 3.7 dwelling units per acre. Within Oak Village and Cypress Village, the multifamily designation, if they receive it, allows up to 6 dwelling units per acre. So then in 2005, on that table, you can see they changed it to single-family detached. It was single-family attached with about 1.9 dwelling units per acre. That is the current designation right now, is single-family 1.9. In the area, which is why I wanted to go back to the aerial quickly, these lots surrounding it are about 1.4 dwelling units per acre. So it's approved for 1.9, 1.4 is what's surrounding. And what is proposed with the multifamily today is about 5.1 dwelling units per acre. Now that is allowed. They can go up to 6. Is it compatible? That's something y'all have to figure out. Dr. Wilburn was correct. There are no deviations proposed. I did want to point out, however, that change in density. He's talked a lot about the roadways. I'm glad that he did. Engineering has noted that our code does require them to review the roadways around the project. They might have to remill, they might have to resurface, something like that. It's appropriate. And looking at the condition of the roads, that's probably going to be if this application is approved. So the findings are positive, other than the compatibility. There is some concern with the intensity here on this site. That's all I have for you.
Thank you. Dr. Wilburn, do you have any questions from staff? Okay, thank you. Board? Ms. Katu, I have a question. When I look back at the previous applications, so that big center, they did develop out that was part of it, right? Initially, the centerpiece, they developed the bath portion?
The Bath and Tennis Club is its own parcel, and it was developed separately. The rest of it is completely vacant. However, it was never green space. That's what I was trying to point out here. It was commercial to multi to single, and now back to multi is proposed, but it was never green space. But that little Bath and Tennis Club is a separate parcel. It's not part of this particular application.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
Please.
Commissioner Royce?
Joanna, would there be impact fees?
Absolutely. Any new house would have impact fees. There's no vesting for that. So
Impact fees based on 250?
it would be per unit with the building permit, yes. And there is a multifamily rate versus single family, but yes.
Any other questions?
Joanna, is there any restriction on further changes to the zoning or land use map? This thing has changed designations multiple times. Is there any restriction on future changes, or can that continue as well?
Commissioner Stone, please speak into your microphone.
Yes, ma'am.
He was asking if there's any restriction on future zoning changes. This changed in 1989 and again in 2005, now proposed in 2023. There are no restrictions on coming forward and presenting any kind of zoning change, master plan change within Sugar Mill Woods. So yes, if this project doesn't develop and they want to do single family or commercial or whatever, one of the uses allowed in Sugar Mill, they certainly could apply for that, just like any other property.
But even if this was approved and it went forward, since it's only owned by a single owner, that would be easier, depending on what he depends to do on the property. He could request a change for zoning as well again.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd use the term easier. It's just like any other property. When you come forward, your parcel can always be considered for a change.
I know, but if I'm sitting there and I have 1 acre as opposed to 50 acres, it's easier to make a change for something commercial if I would.
Perhaps. Some of the lots in Sugar Mill have come forward with multifamily to single family by themselves. That's been pretty common in the past years, but.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Okay. Thank you. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, and we will reconvene at 10:10 and open to the public.
So how do I respond to this? From me to Sally to do the assessment to have the correct jury. Yeah. So I guess that means you fix it. So are you going to fix it? Is that not her? And they're not hers, but she knows better. She has to know this. Please have them fixed.
Is that a phone jack on your fan?
Yes, it goes right in here.
So you can recharge it?
No, that's how it works.
Oh, I see. You can't work without the phone?
People ask me, you know, what's that
But it sure is nice. Outside eating, restaurants,
I remember when I was saying they bought
That's cool.
and it.
Oh.
So if you have any folks in your life, maybe of the female persuasion that need to have a fan, it's a very nice gift.
Now, where might you buy one of those?
Amazon, where we get everything.
I know.
It's caveat.
And then it comes apart for a nice storage in your purse.
Something that's important to you.
What's it called? Fan for iPhone?
Cute. I'll let you know, sir. Do I have your personal cell? Do I have your personal cell?
No, 609. Personal cell?
Yeah, that thing in your hand. Do I have that number? I set them up. Oh, okay. I'll send you a link.
They want to make the GIS better than it already is. Because that thing is amazing.
I think it's good too.
It's the geographic information system.
Doesn't appear as though I do.
They now give all the information about houses.
If everyone could begin taking your seats, we're going to reopen the meeting.
Put your address in.
Yeah.
It's got like it's a lot. Good. Tells you the water.
Thank you. The public portion of the meeting will now be opened. If there is anyone present who would like to speak on the application, please come forward to the podium. As a reminder, individuals will have 3 minutes to speak and organizations will have 5 minutes. When speaking on this application, please address the board. Just 1 second. If you have any docs that you want to be entered into the record, please provide a copy to the recording secretary. So at this time, anyone in favor of this application, please come to the podium.
In favor?
In favor. Anyone in favor? Going once, twice, seeing none. Anyone opposed to the application, please come forward to the podium.
Good morning. I'm Lauren Miriam. I'm an attorney here on behalf of Oak Village. I brought my yellow card, my board of directors authorization, and a memo of law for your record. Who do I give it to?
To Cheryl, please, the secretary.
Thank you. The clock says I'm already underway, so thank you for your time. I'll try to be as brief as possible. Chairperson Worthington and members of the PDC, my name's Lauren Miriam. I'm an attorney for Southeast Broadway, Ocala, Florida. I'm here on behalf of Oak Village Association. I feel like the Federal Express commercial because the clock is ticking. I submitted a memorandum of law. The things that I wanted to emphasize, and you may or may not have received it in your package, is deliberations today. And I'm not testifying. I am giving information. I'm making legal argument, but you'll hear from lots of witnesses. A modern Florida law is guided by the Florida Supreme Court from 1993, a case called Broward County Commission of Brevard versus Snyder. Your proceedings are quasi-judicial. You have to have substantial or competent substantial evidence for your decision. My memo of law is not evidence. It's just a memorandum of law, but it can guide you as to what you could consider. I've emphasized in my memorandum that lay opinion or citizen non-expert testimony may form the basis for the competent and substantial evidence that's been recognized by the court. And remember that the general nature of a comprehensive plan means that the local government retains the right to deny a request even if the request is consistent with the plan, because the plan is a big picture and the particular application is specifics. In Metropolitan Dade County versus Sport Acres, the courts held that incompatibility with the neighborhood supported by neighbor testimony is grounds for denial. The court specifically recognized two areas of neighborhood testimony: lot size, home size, negative effect on property values. Another thing that the court specifically said your layperson testimony can be is the natural beauty and aesthetic incompatibility. And I've given the court citations in those. I represent Oak Village. I don't know what each individual person is going to testify about, but I think you'll hear things like typical lot and home size, concern about more intensive use, property values, incompatibility with the predominant use at Oak Village. I think you're going to hear that Oak Village is predominantly a very homogeneous neighborhood. It's one product, pretty much one product, and that's the reason those people are there. They're going to talk about the natural beauty, and I think Oak Village is famous for its green belt, large green belt buffer. That's important to those people. At least I think that's what you're going to hear. Remember that the Florida Supreme Court finally said that we do not accept the proposition that once a landowner demonstrates that a proposed use is consistent, they're presumptively entitled to that use. And in fact, local officials retain the discretion to accept or reject an application if they deem that change is not desirable, not compatible. There's over 3,000 owners at Oak Village. I don't know how many of them are here to speak today. I've got a minute left, so I think some of the concerns that I have is inconsistency. When I first read the application, I couldn't tell what the ownership structure was. I'm still not sure, although I think finally today I heard one owner. I thought I also heard single story, but this photograph is in my packet. Looks like 2-story. I'm not sure that's a product that's designed for people that are aging. I know my spouse and I are having that debate right now about our next home. Is it going to be single story or 2-story? And the older person prefers the single story. A couple of other things. My time is rapidly going away. There's a lot of ambiguity in the application. There was talk about restrictive covenants. Well, if there's only one deed to one person, it sounds like an apartment complex. You don't have any deeds. You don't have any covenants. I don't understand that. There's talk about multifamily. There's almost no multifamily in Oak Village. Perhaps this would be appropriate over in Cypress Village. I think you'll hear a lot about in Cypress Village, but there's very little, if any, in Oak Village. And as far as the map, you've seen the commercial has been going away, the multifamily's been going away, the development has been single family. Was I given 3 or 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
Thank you for your time. May I answer any questions?
No, that's okay.
And Madam Chair, if I can jump in, I apologize. We have an overflow room upstairs, and they are aware and watching, so if any of them want to speak, it's the time to come down. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. At this time, anyone else like to come forward opposed to the application?
Excuse me, sir. I was. Yeah, sure. All right. Thank you. Hello, my name is Richard Ricard. I'm at 2 Village Center Circle. What do you want to do with this? All right. I'd like to start by saying that the statement a couple times by the CEO of Sweetwater Homes that this is targeted to, just retired folks, and that there's going to be less of an impact in traffic than having single-family homes is absolute nonsense. And it's an insult to everybody in this room. Unless you designate this as a 55 and plus with no kids, and there's no way that you can control who moves into this community. None whatsoever. In fact, we know that on average, every home has at least 2 cars on average. So now we're talking about 500 cars increase in traffic in that whole community. This impacts all of Oakwood Village, including all the property owners along Village Center Drive, T Rose Street, Oak Village Boulevard, and Lone Pine Street. These are the main thoroughfares in and out of the community to 98 and 480. So not only do we have a problem with the traffic, but now potentially you have lower income families moving into the community because they won't be able to afford to buy. And now they have the ability to rent. That's going to drop all our property values, potentially increase in crime. So I ask this body to postpone this meeting to another venue, a larger venue, at a time that is not during working hours, and have a letter sent out to the entire Oak Village community because it impacts all of us. I have a minute left. There's other things that are impacting besides potential, obvious traffic problems, potential crime, and lower values of, our properties. Talked about, this is a conservation community. The plaque says wildlands conservation, preserving our natural places. What's being preserved with this community? What happens to the hundreds of gopher turtles and owls and migratory birds, fox squirrels? Has anybody done an impact, conservation impact on that property? The other, I have 25 seconds here. I also ask the developer, have you?
Please address the board, sir. Please
Oh,
address
sure.
the board.
I ask you to ask the developer if there has been any applications to the federal government for HUD grants. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Dr. Roger Davis. I live at 13 Cosmos Court East, which is the upper left corner here. I also have other vacant lots on that same street. My wife and I had a house built 4 years ago on Cosmos Court by Sweetwater, very nice home, right next to Oak Village Circle and the land in question. We were aware of the possibility of homes being built in the circle, but the plans that we were aware of showed a few streets with single-family homes. I believe that if the land is rezoned to allow multifamily and even multi-story townhouses, that will change the character of Oak Village and will ruin it. Much of the presentation was about Cypress Village. What do they have in Cypress Village? They got lots of condos and things like that there. But this rezoning is for Oak Village. We have our own identity. There are plenty of other places to build those kind of homes. If the builder wants to fit more homes on the 40 or 50 acres they have, they can still build single-family homes similar to what they have in the hammocks or oak leaf in Cypress Village. Take that model and put it there, and they can fit a lot of homes in there, and they're still single-family homes. I also feel like I'm uniquely qualified to speak about elderly people. I have a mother in her 80s. I have an aunt in her 80s. They have both sold their homes in top of the world in Ocala because their spouses died. They are now looking in Oak Village and surrounding area, Sugar Mill Woods, to be near us, actually me and my wife. And they have money. It's not like they can't afford a place. It's what they're looking at is oak leaf and the hammocks because that's what they want. It's about 1,800 to 2,000 square feet. It's got a garage for safety for them because they want that safety of a garage. And they can afford it. And the maintenance is done for them, so they don't have to worry about lawn and things like that because they pay a small fee, HOA fee, to do that. And that's what they want. Okay, they don't want a 2-story townhouse, to go up and down the stairs, and they don't want to pay rent. They have money because they sold their houses. So I'll keep my time short. Please reject this rezoning effort and allow us to maintain the character of Oak Village. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members
Morning.
of the Planning and Development Commission for Citrus County. My wife and I have lived in Citrus County for the past...
Oh, sir, could you please state your name for the record?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Marvin Robbins. I live at 94 Vica Street, which is located within Oak Village. As I said, we've lived here in Citrus County for 14 years. Originally, We lived in a waterfront condo in Crystal River for 11 years. We searched for a new home up and down the Gulf Coast, and we discovered Sugar Mill Woods in about 2019. At that time, we were taken by the beautifully maintained, custom-built family homes, single-family homes. In fact, had I known that the development that we're speaking of today was intended to be all rentals, I would have revised my comments to address that, but I think others have and will. Although the homes were individually unique, they conformed with the well-documented standards that are articulated within its deed restrictions. We decided to purchase a lot in Oak Village, north of Highway 98, hired a reputable builder, and moved into our new home in August of 2020. The proposed 49-acre mini development within the boundaries of Oak Village would be a seriously unwelcome intrusion, tipping the balance of homes and nature towards cookie-cutter, originally I was going to say condos and apartments, but apartments that anyone can see rising up in the counties to the south of Citrus County. Such a development would dramatically and negatively alter the character of Oak Village and would diminish the property values of our own homes. 250 units on 49 acres would require massive clearing of the natural environment, and I believe the speaker before me commented on that. Our woods and green belts behind each and every home are what made most of us move here in the first place. 250 new units would equal an estimated 500 additional residents. 250 new units would equal an estimated 250 to 500 additional vehicles. 250 new units would strain the existing infrastructure, the roadways that the unit renters would be using once they leave their gated section. 250 new units would impact healthcare in the area as well, putting a strain on that. Would impact schools in the area if their target residents would not be in their 70s, but younger with children. 250 new units would impact public safety in the area. In the proposal under consideration, and you can see it on the diagrams, Oak Village is the donut. The development we're speaking of is the hole in the donut.
Please wrap up your comment.
I will. In this scenario, the donut hole has nothing in common with the donut. It would be like substituting the Bavarian cream filling with sardines. It doesn't go.
Everyone, please be respectful of the
With
speaker.
all due respect, I urge this body to disapprove the proposal based on the community's opposition as described not only
Thank
in
you,
my
sir.
comments,
Thank you.
but others.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your time this morning. My name is James Parada. I live at 4 Village Center Circle. I'm also the president of Sugar Mill Woods Civic Association and represent all 3 villages. Of the 3 villages, Oak Village is very different. Cypress Village, for example, has 7 condos, villas, a storage facility, and some retail. Oak Village has none of these, except for a few duplexes that were deed restricted to Road 480. Oak Village is a deed-restricted community of single-family homes. When I purchased my home in this deed-restricted community, I did so because I was looking to protect my purchase. Supporting this proposed project would change the entire atmosphere, beauty, and aesthetics of the entire neighborhood. I inquired before buying my home and was told the property would be developed as single-family homes. All the way back for the last 30 years, it's been designated for single-family homes. Also, Oak Village is not specifically an over 55 community. In fact, it mostly is though. And what is proposed by the applicant would be incompatible with a typical Oak Village owner. Also, I heard in the presentation this morning, Mr. Ponico said we didn't want multi-family and people's faces coming into the community. But I live directly across the street from what is being proposed, And so these multifamily would be in my face. And I moved there to not have that. Also, I heard when asked by the board about ownership, whoever owns it at the time. So it doesn't sound to me like they're developing it for something long lasting for them. It sounds like it may be owned by somebody else in the future. And so there's no guarantees on whoever owns it in the future continuing to protect those of us who live around it. I respectfully ask that you decline the proposed change and protect my investment and the beauty of my neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name's Daniel Donahue. I live at 6 Village Center Drive in Oak Village. There are 2 or 3 ways in or out of this complex. To the north, you go down to Oak Village Drive or Boulevard, and that'll take you out to 98. To the north, there's T-Table and where Village Center Drive ends. You can only turn left off of Oak Village Boulevard or Village Center Drive. He says, no developer is going to come up here and say, hey, I'm going to build this mess and leave you guys with it, okay? I'm a retired police officer. Anytime you put rental apartments into an area, the renters have no loyalty to the property, and he's not saying he's going to make it 55 or older. And he also hasn't said he's going to keep this and manage it. He says the owner at the time. So if any of you have driven through our neighborhood, you know it's all single-family homes. And just about every single house has a green belt. I have 800 feet behind me. I bought my house because I wanted to be in a single-family neighborhood. Also, he keeps saying about when a spouse dies. My wife died 9 years ago. I stayed in that house because I love the house. I want the privacy. I don't want to live in a mess like this where I don't know who the people are next door to me. I know all my neighbors. We get together. We have a community. Most of my neighbors are here today. And I'll guarantee you, try and find somebody out here under 55. You won't. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm Charlie Bradway. I live at 18 Begonias Court in Sugar Mill. My concerns for this development, well, first of all, I heard the developer talk about this is like groundbreaking concept for the nation, that this is what's going to be the new future for housing. I find that hard to believe, and I'm not sure that it fits with Sugar Mill at all. And I don't think that some of the reasons or examples they've given for why they want to build it are purely related to satisfying a need for elderly people. I see that the opportunity for them is money. When I look at the property and we talk about conservation areas, and I see a lot of ponds, if you eliminate those from the buildable land, we're way over any kind of density that's been talked about. If they are ponds, they're ponds. You can't build. So I would estimate that now the buildable land is down to maybe 25, 30 acres. So that's an increase in density in that property. Look around our neighborhoods on the cul-de-sacs, we're basically 0.28, 0.3 acres per unit. So that's basically 3 per acre. To increase this to these numbers, it just doesn't fit what we're accustomed to. Outside of the immediate area, I've heard him refer to the Village Center Circle as a boulevard. I don't see it as a boulevard. It does have some wide spaces along the sides, but the roadways are still roadways. They're 2-lane streets. We have a lot of walkers that walk on that circle. Even because there are curves, sometimes they can be obstructed from clear view. There are no walking paths around that circle. There will be some internally, but we're going to have more traffic outside the circle. Step out to 98, there are no acceleration lanes to leave Sugar Mill, which is dangerous. The speed limit may be 50, but the cars come over those hills at 70. So I think we're going to have some increased safety concerns, not only for pedestrians around the circle, but even for, vehicle drivers entering and exiting 98. So I would suggest to the panel that you reject this proposal, go back and revisit. It had been, I'm sure that somebody came before this board before to change it to single family. Now we're going to flip flop and go back to multifamily. I think we need to have consistency, and I think that you've found that when it was approved for single family initially. And I'd like to remain that way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Nick Carter. I live at 4 Salvia Court. I tried to get up a second ago to announce that I'm under the age of 55, and I also agree with everyone here that I'm vehemently against this. I don't know who watches Yellowstone, but when Mr. Dutton became governor, he stated that he was the person that all progress should stop. I'm not against all progress. I do not like the proposal. If the property is zoned for what it is, build as many single-family homes as you want. Nobody here wants multifamily homes. I have couple questions and comments regarding the proposal. Just like the gentleman before said, if you're talking 50 acres on 250 homes, you subtract your ponds, you're not at 50 acres. That's impossible. That's a lie. What happens when those ponds flood? Who's going to deal with that? I don't know who is. Somebody mentioned the gopher tortoises. I'm also utterly astonished. I have pictures of this proposal in these homes, and none of you guys do. I don't know if I missed that upstairs. Does nobody have any pictures of what it's going to look like? Yeah? Okay.
Sir, we're not answering questions. Just
Okay,
wrap
perfect. Got it. The pictures are exactly cookie cutter. They are not the same. They're not upscale. They're nothing special. I don't know why we need gates. We have a security guard that runs around the community. Everybody's pretty safe. Crime's low. No reason for gates. It also doesn't match anything that we have. There's a reason that they want to change the zoning from single to multifamily. They think they can make more money. That's all this is. This is a money grab. If you wanted to keep it a single, you would have already developed it. You now think the market's hot. You're going to try and sell more homes. Upscale rentals, nobody wants those either. If you want rentals, please go look in Hudson, go look in Pasco County. You guys go drive around that community and tell me that you want to live next to that or within the vicinity of it. There's a reason it's called Sugar Mill Woods. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Ed Schiller. I live on 11 Village Center Drive. I purchased my home in 2003 with the expectations that the surrounding area would be consistent with single-family homes. So I've been here almost 20 years. So in 2005, I got a letter in the mail. They're going to do a zoning change. And they changed the zoning to single-family housing. And we're going to have 35 homes around the perimeter and 60 homes in the inside. People came here, nobody remonstrated against that proposal. So if that was consistent with the existing area. Oak Village is all single-family homes, except for the duplexes, which are out on 480, which is County Road, with a big green belt between them and the other houses. And there's only about 10 multifamily homes there. That's the only multifamily homes in Oak Village. The proposal talking before is in the heart of Oak Village. That's the center of Oak Village. Everybody bought their homes with the expectations that everything was going to be consistent. I talked with Mr. Ponacos prior to this, and he said he was basing it towards seniors. Well, two-story homes aren't for seniors. There's no way. I'm 76 years old. No way I'm going to buy a house, but I got to go up and down stairs. In fact, my wife has to have knee surgery on Monday. And these are going to be driveways. Can you imagine garbage trucks driving down driveways and how long this 1 inch of asphalt they'll probably put down with a little bit of gravel will last. So everybody wants the housing to be consistent. If they stuck with what they wanted to do in 2005, everybody would be fine with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
I'm John Carrico. I live at 9 Boston Ivy Court, Oak Village. Happy in Oak Village. Just a couple points is I see that everyone here is against the proposal. I did not see anyone come up in the public portion for the proposal. So that's telling in itself of what the residents of Oak Village want. I'm not Cypress Village. We don't need a guard in our meetings. And Oak Village, I'd ask the board to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning. My name is Jerry Meyer. I purchased my home at 13 Village Center Drive, July of 2020. I'm Ed's next door neighbor. And my front door looks directly out into the community, the area that is presently improved with the junior Olympic sized pool and the community building with the exercise equipment. So I hear the pickleball being played every evening, and it's a wonderful place to live. I first fell in love with this community in 1975 when I was the assistant county property appraiser in Hernando County. And my brother-in-law, Stu Lang, built some of the swimming pools in your neighborhood. And I commend Mr. Ponticos and his partners for such a beautiful place to live. I've only wanted to live here for 50 years, and I'm so glad to be here. And I can get emotional about that. I've been a commercial real estate appraiser for over 50 years. I started out in Florida, in Sarasota, moved up the coast, and finally am here. By the grace of God. I lost a wife some years ago that I had already convinced to move here. So I had to resell my dreams to a new wife 3 years ago. And so I'm very emotional about living here and having been pretty much run out of Sarasota by inconsistent, incompatible development right inside of communities that I've lived. I've seen this happen before. And you don't want this. You really don't. And that's not why I fulfilled a dream of 50 years to move here. This incompatibility, this 250 units is flies in the face of why folks move into this neighborhood and declare Citrus County to be their forever home. And that's why I'm here. I feel that this inconsistent use smack dab in the middle of a semi-rural wonderful community will adversely impact our valuations, our single-family home valuations. And I think the county assessor will have no choice but to devalue our property. And I think this is the beginning of a really bad problem, and I hope you don't let it happen here. And that's all I have to say, and I thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker.
My name is Patrick Goodman. I live at 17 Revelia Court in Oak Village as well. There's a reason that the developers in the past changed this from multifamily back to single family. That reason still holds. A lot of the other points that have been pointed out, I don't need to reiterate. However, the traffic pattern around this on that circle is one lane in each direction. And if any of you live in Sugar Mill Woods, try coming through there sometime in the morning around 10 o'clock when there's a garbage truck out there. There'll be 12 or 15 vehicles backed up behind that garbage truck because it is one lane in each direction. Also, the quickest exit is through T-Rows. Imagine what the traffic will be on T-Rows. Again, one lane in each direction. To accelerate matters, I would suggest that the board ask for a show of hands. How many folks are in opposition to this plan? And I'd like to record my vote as being in opposition as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Teresa Haley. I moved from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Ma'am, and your address?
78 Oak Village Boulevard.
Thank you.
So I live right on the boulevard. I moved down here. It's like heaven. Okay. I grew up in the city up in Pittsburgh. I was a bus operator for the city of Pittsburgh. Dealt with public all my life. And so coming here to Sugar Mill Woods, it's like a piece of heaven where you have privacy and you don't have to deal with a lot of public. And since I moved here in Sugar Mill Woods 2.5 years ago, because of the boom, there's just been so much more increase already going up the boulevard. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and we walk our dogs, and we normally just go on the back roads because of the increase in the danger of walking our dogs on the boulevard because there's not really a sidewalk. We'll walk in the beautiful greenway down the center drive, but we'll usually walk our dogs on the edge when we do that, getting to the back streets because of people flying up and down the streets coming. We're like, they're a northerner, but whenever we first moved here, there weren't as many homes, and it was safer. But there's a lot of pollution. People just throw their stuff, living right on the boulevard, and where I live, if you look at my house in the aerial view, the green belt behind my house is pretty much one of the narrowest areas. So I bought the property next to me because I could have privacy. And I think that's what most of the people here want, is privacy. And growing up in the city, old people would die. People would buy the homes, rent them. You'd get people on Section 8, and then you get your drugs, and you get your crime, and there goes the neighborhood. All right? And that's what I think all of us are avoiding, living in Sugar Mill Woods. It's like a piece of heaven. And because if developers want to come in and destroy that so they can make a buck, go somewhere else and do it. My daughter and I, we started out down in Sarasota looking at property, and it's a madhouse down there. They did that. They took and they developed and they made their buck, and everyone else has to deal with the flow of traffic, and they just take a beautiful place and make it ugly. And I as one individual, I just tell you, don't do it. Don't do it, okay? I mean, for your whole beautiful area up here, watch how much you let them develop, because otherwise you're going to end up like Tampa, Sarasota, and other. And another thing, the new trend is you will own nothing and you will be happy, okay? Well, yeah, tell that to the single parent that's renting out a house, that's renting out an apartment, and dealing with their child with the damn drug dealers.
Ma'am, if you could wrap up your comments, please.
Sorry. You have a nice day.
Thank you. Next speaker. Are there any other speakers? Please come on up to the podium if you'd like to speak. Be in line so we can continue to move forward.
Where's the timer? Oh, I see. Okay. Hi, my name is Susan Wallace. I live at 22 Begonias Court, which is the side of the swimming area. We moved here from Georgia, so I kind of know what's going on now in Citrus. I lived in Cobb County in Georgia, which at one time was one of the premier counties in Georgia, which it is not that anymore. Our backyard, there was a certified backyard wildlife habitat, which I do not do in Sugar Mill because there is so much wildlife. I figured I would be overrun with it. But that's what attracted me. I don't think I'd ever been to Homosassa. Somebody said, "Where are you going and why? Do you know anybody?" I said, "Oh no, but I found a house and we're moving to Homosassa." And it was there in Oak Village, and I loved it because of the green space. I was giving up my natural habitat, but not really giving it up because it had animals, and I just thought it was marvelous. Like the one person said, it was kind of like heaven on earth. So anyway, and when people are about leaving their communities, leaving their family, I lived in my house in Georgia for 30 years. Unfortunately, I still owe the mortgage, so I still owe a mortgage here, so I can't just pick up and move and leave. But it's like, you know, most of us in this room have left someplace and moved, whether it's 10 miles or 100 miles. And I just love Oak Village. And the thing is down here, what I've been looking at, I used to look on the city data and the realtors.com and all that good stuff. Crime here was very low when I looked at different places I might consider moving to. And the crime has been going up within the time we've been here, within the last 2 years. And a lot of people still, it's because of the turnpike being completed. It's easier access to Tampa, which it could be. And when you get a lot of people that you don't know in an area, that also can increase crime. And even talking of 55 and older, this is a new world that we're living in. A lot of 55 and on up people have grandchildren who have no intention of ever getting a job. And mom and dad have maybe gotten fed up with them, so they go live with grandma or grandpa. And you could end up having a couple of teenagers or 30-year-olds living even with older people, and that's strictly projected. It's not a for sure thing. So then you're going from grandma's car to 2 more cars. And if you let it be open to anybody, you can have 2 people in an apartment, meaning 2 cars, but then they get a buddy to come in, doesn't have a place to go, and you end up with 4 cars. So that's a problem because we do not have sidewalks and people do get out and walk there. We're also on outdoor watering restrictions, very strict in Oak Village. Even though I have well water for the yard, it's still just 1 day a week because it's all dependent on the water level. It's just, and if there are kids there, there would be a big influx in students and everything. And so my deal is that there are other reasons, but I don't have time because you're going to run me out of here. But I think it's interesting that the complex would have gates, but we don't have gates to keep them out of our part. That's kind of interesting, I think. But anyway, it's a projected market. It will lower our quality of life, and it would also reduce the amount of money that we could get on our houses. And so I just say vote because in this case, I believe it's the love of money.
Ma'am, if you could wrap up your comments,
which will
please.
destroy the residents and the wildlife and the way of life we experience in Oak Village.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good morning, Board. My name is Sean McDonald. I live at 90 Vinca Street in Oak Village. I was a firefighter in Connecticut for 27 years. I retired here to build my forever home a year and a half ago. Very happy with the development. I like the green belt, was a big reason why. I grew up with woods in my backyard in Connecticut, and that's what I wanted. My parents moved here 6 months after I moved here. My parents are 82. I'm in the under 55 group. They moved here because they wanted to be closer to their son and they want to live comfortably. So they moved into Deer Park, which is a single family community right off of Route 480. And they were looking for single floor residents. They weren't looking to rent and they weren't looking for a townhouse. I disagree with the premise that the developer is providing, that these people are looking for 2-story townhouses for the aging community. So I think this proposal should be, excuse me, I think this proposal should be rejected by the board because it was developed for single-family homes, and I think it should stay that way because that's what it was when I bought my home, and that's what we expected to be developed around here. If they would like to put in a denser community, maybe they should look at Deer Park. My parents pay an HOA, and they take care of the property for them. They take care of the lawns, they mow, they trim the bushes, they take care of their irrigation. It includes their TV, internet, amongst other things. So if they're looking to make a little more money, then they should look at maybe 1,650 and 1,800 square foot homes on smaller lots, which is what Deer Park is. So again, I'm just gonna sum up by asking you to reject this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Anyone else like to speak?
Yes, my name is Nancy Aceto. I live at 15 Village Center Drive, so my impact is severe. I'm first in line.
Ma'am, can you speak in the microphone?
I'm first in line like the infantry. When they come in off of T Rose, they make a right on T Rose going down 98. It's going to be bumper to bumper traffic, I can tell you right now. Okay, at certain times of the day, 5 o'clock in particular. And I'm watching your body language. I've seen this all before, many times. Looks like you're semi-bored, giving my 3 minutes. I see you smiling.
I don't have to vote.
Well, I'm also going to reference Meadowcrest. Seen this all before. They got to say their piece. Now you look very attentive. And 30 days later, they did just the opposite. They heard our complaints. They sympathized. The decision was already made, obviously. Those people have incurred a special assessment. And it's not just a few $100s, it's thousands. It's also tens of thousands, from my understanding. So, with that, I'm watching you every moment, your eye movements. I've been watching you since I walked in this room. And I'm going to ask you to strongly consider how you weigh on this one, because I would feel very badly if you guys just rubber stamp this in 30 days, because now we've got a pattern. Just something to think about. That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Morning. My name is Richard Charlton. I live in Sugar Mill Woods, and I live in Mimosa Court. Just have one real quick question. Don't need an answer. What do we need a gated community for? To keep people out or keep people in? And it's just not consistent with the way the whole area is. Gates don't make it upscale. That's all.
Anyone else like to speak in opposition to this application? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Sandra Santa. I live at 1 T Rose. My husband was going to speak. He's the smart one, but unfortunately he had to leave. I live right there at T Rose, 1 T Rose. We bought a beautiful home a year ago. Gutted it. It's gorgeous. And now I can see that the gate is going to be right smack in front of my home. Right coming along T Rose. As it is now, if it's not zone 55, if you have good credit, enough income, minimum income, you're going to live there. I don't care what you say, what you want to market it as. All you need is 640 credit, a decent income, and you have to open a door to everybody. Only one owner? What if we have 3 hurricanes back to back? Where's the reserve to fix it? Who's going to fix it? I saw it happen in Pinellas. People bought condos for $90,000, got assessed $55,000 when they had 3 hurricanes back to back. If you want to turn this into what it's designated, what they want to do, it's going to turn into a ghetto. And I use that word because I want you to remember that word. I've seen it happen in Palm Harbor. I saw it happen in Holiday. People came from the north, bought nice little homes in Holiday. You don't want to walk there any longer. It will turn into a ghetto. People bought there just as we did. You can change it to single family. People will take care of it. Renters, how many trucks are we going to have going up and down? And it's going to allow pets? Where are they going to walk the pets? Is there a pet park? I didn't hear anything about a designated pet park. It's going to come right down my street. Everybody else's street here. We have a poop problem as it is, but we tolerate it, we deal with it. Where are they going to walk the dog? I mean, you don't take a beautiful place and put a ghetto and think you're going to be happy. It's not going to happen. I've seen it happen. Come from New York City, was born and raised around there, got my butt out of there, moved to Palm Harbor, lived by the water. What happened? Walmart came to town. This one came to town because they had to have stores for the ghetto. So I moved to Homosassa. I love it. And if this happens, I'm out of here. Thank you. Please reject.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, my name is Mario Contreras. I'm on 3 Hollyhock Court in Homosassa, and I have a couple concerns about the application. For one thing, I'm sure it's been touched on already as far as environmental issue, but animals that are living in that particular area are going to be going to the opposite end of the street, which will be an encroachment on my area as well as everybody on Hollyhock Court there. Number two, I have a concern. This is like a city within a city, if you can understand that. You're going to be putting in roads, you're going to be putting in water pipes, everything to support the developments of the home will be put in there. There's going to be extensive drilling, which will possibly be an issue for sinkholes. I don't know if anyone understands the issue as far as water being pumped out of the ground for these developments. There's a sinkhole issue, as well as the animal issue going from the animals within that development. We are supposed to be stewards of the land, and I don't see that being happening here. I see that we're being sold out because of monetary interests. And when we moved in here, the Serenity was one of the things that were sold. And I can see a lot of people exiting because of this issue. If this is allowed to go in, I can see a lot of people exiting. You may say, well, too bad, let them exit. Well, you know, I don't think that's really proper to think of that. I think people who are residents in a deed restricted area where you're concerned about your neighbors, and then allowing a whole new development, another city being put in without any deed restrictions, to my knowledge, would be really a travesty for this area. And I believe that the long-term effects will be very negative. So I hope, again, that you do vote no on this issue. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Just to keep in mind, we've now done 50 minutes of testimony, and we're here for you to put your voice on the record. But if you have new or different opinions that you'd like to share, you know, that would be most productive. Do we have any other speakers in opposition? Oh. Anyone? Seeing going once?
Mary Shriver, 76 Lone Pine Street. And the lady back there brought up a point. He said it's high scale, high income bracket. I have my perception of what that is, but what are they really selling for? Units.
This is your opportunity to make a comment to the board. We're not going to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, but I'd like to brought up sometime. Then I'm just back to traffic. I live on Lone Pine Street. My husband calls it alternate 98. In 3 years, it's worse. So anyway, bye.
Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to speak in opposition to this application? Going once, twice. Okay, seeing no one else. Dr. Wilburn, would you like to respond?
Thank you guys for the opportunity to speak on behalf of those comments. I wrote down 18 different things I would like to address. I'm going to go in the order in which they were given. I would like to bring to your attention that my firm, Local Engineering, is a professional design firm. There was a comment early on about the professionalism and testimony. And so I wanted to inform the board, which I didn't previously, that I have been retained. My firm has been retained to not only do the site, but also to do the structural drawings. And so you have had professionalism all the way through this project to this point, and we'll continue to have that as it moves forward. We've already mentioned, Mr. Facemeyer brought up some concerns about traffic. In your staff report, the engineering division doesn't have any concerns regarding traffic movements. Their only stipulation or only comments was that the surface of the road would need to be tested and whether or not the roadway would need to be improved. And that's standard practice throughout our county and prescribed in the Land Development Code. Is traffic going to increase? Yes. But it's going to, if you look at this site plan, and hopefully I can articulate this clearly for you guys. Which button? Oh my goodness. Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry. Okay. So if you look, there's 3 major exits. So in terms of the increased traffic flow, and a lot of the concerns will reference the same thing I'm about to show you. A lot of this increased traffic flow is internal. And this layout has been done with a traffic study in mind.
Audience, please be respectful of the speaker, please.
When you consider this design, and we've done this with traffic engineering in mind and FDOT requirements in mind, backlog and queues will be on site for this project until they reach this boulevard where the 3 major exits are. And from there, they're going to a thoroughfare. So when you talk about, and when you've heard testimony about them walking their dogs around the boulevard and things like that, you're really not going to have somebody exit this development right here and drive all the way around. They're going to exit this development internally right here where they need to go. That's just one example. So in terms of increased traffic on the boulevard, it's almost a moot point. There's not going to be, and the study has already shown this, increased traffic on the boulevard. There'll be increased queuing inside the development, but once it exits, it's going straight out. The boulevard will not see an increase in traffic, and that's just one example of a route that you could simulate. I'm going to skip comment number 3. There's still some discussion.
Excuse me,
behind
audience members, will you please refrain from cross-talking? We're trying to hear the applicant respond to your concerns. Please, I've asked you.
I do want to make sure that it is known that there are no 55 and older deed restrictions currently in Sugar Mill, with the exception of maybe one or two condo developments. So there is not anything in place currently now for anybody else that would be 55 and older. And so we're being consistent with that by not placing a deed restricted age on, or a restricted age, I should say, on this development. There was mention of this project has been residential for over 30 years. The staff report even suggested that is not entirely accurate. It was commercial for a very long time, and then in 2005, it was changed from commercial to single family. I also want to point out again, and those of you who have had your site visit, maybe you remember being out there, that the presence of that 25-foot buffer, which we have implemented into this plan, which is different from the first plan we submitted, many of the houses that you see in this development won't be seen from the boulevard, period, because of the forested trees that are already there. So in terms of view, in terms of that 25-foot of grass that people walk along that boulevard now, all that stuff will stay. That 25-foot of trees will stay. Much of this development you won't even see. In fact, there's over 200 feet on the south side where you can see there where the 25-foot buffer is, and then green space where the pond is. And you can kind of see as you work around that the residences are even pulled back from that 25-foot also. I've already talked about the engineering division looking at the roads and seeing no issue in terms of traffic maneuverability. I've already made testimony that we've looked into that and have already retained the services of a traffic consultant, Way Engineering. There was a comment made about the nationwide trend to downsize not being accurate. I just want to speak briefly to that. There is a proven nationwide trend to downsize in many ways and many ages. Millennials, on average, right now have over $30,000 in debt, and they don't have the money to purchase a large home. They don't have the money to, or the money secured to be able to put a down payment on. And so they will find themselves in a rental market, a market that our county doesn't have that much of. You look at senior adults, and they want to downsize. They want to have less of a footprint. They want a lower maintenance lifestyle. There is an active trend of downsizing. You can go on, and many of you guys are experts in this field too, and you probably know this. Across our country, you can go and do a MLS search for houses over 6,000 square feet, and their price point per square foot is so much lower because the buyers are less. Nobody wants big houses, big overhead, big maintenance. And so that trend is accurate, and this model is something that we've already made testimony is not in Sugar Mill now, but it is needed, and this is where we're headed as a nation. This is where we're headed as a community. There was a concern over the ponds flooding, and I just want to reiterate something I stated in my original presentation. These ponds do not overflow. They're not allowed to. They have to maintain a 100-year storm. It's a closed basin, so it's under the strictest guidelines. And in addition to that, those guidelines require a safety factor of 2. And so the ponds are designed to handle a 100-year storm event, a storm that happens once in 100 years, in 2 back-to-back days. And so the issue of flooding is not a concern, or it shouldn't be a concern because of the requirements this development will have to undergo. I would also like to stipulate, and you have seen evidence of this, many senior adults now are living longer, and many senior adults now have a more active lifestyle than they have ever had before. And so the concept of having townhomes, which you'll see this development on the north side is townhomes. Those are 2-story townhomes, as you've seen in the architectural renderings. But those could be for active seniors, and there are active seniors who do this all the time. And we're living longer, we're being more active, and so we are providing on this site really a 3 different tier dynamic to be able to handle an aging person. Someone who can have a single family home, as you'll see there, I believe there's 45 of them. Someone who doesn't necessarily want a single family home but wants a smaller duplex, and then someone who wants even smaller than that in the form of a townhome. And so there are 3 tiers there. There was a statement made by the 10th person that stated that the site is not compatible. And I just want to point out in your own staff report, which is done by the county's professionals, that the proposed is consistent with the comprehensive plan. And it's not only consistent in one area, it's consistent in the 10 areas that are mentioned. And that's different from a lot of times when you'll hear a project that'll come before you that I've even had to present, where there are things that are inconsistent and you guys have to weigh in the balance what is the right thing to do. This project is consistent and has been proven to be consistent in all of those major markers and major metrics. I've already talked about traffic flow. I'm not going to mention that again. This is something that came up 3 or 4 times in speakers about the green space and about the green belt. This project in no way, shape, or form does anything to remove any existing green belt. I just want to go on the record as saying that. We're not proposing to eliminate or do anything on the exterior of this project. Everything is internal. Somebody mentioned about walking dogs and where those feces and things were going to go. There, you don't have it shown, but the grass trails that we talked about, the amenities walking around this facility, there's almost 3 miles of trail that could be just around the perimeter and around the retention areas that could be for walking and active space. And so while there may be people who desire to leave this area and walk around the perimeter just like everybody else, a lot of that foot traffic is going to be inside and internal to this. But in no way, shape, or form are we removing any type of green belt or any type of green space that was here before. 14. I want to go on record and say that I appreciate this board keeping an open mind with every presentation and the integrity into which you guys approach this, and you hear the facts and then you make a decision. And so I want to publicly kind of reject that comment and say that I appreciate the work you guys do. Not always the way I want it to turn out, but you always are fair and you look at the facts. 15, the gentleman mentioned gates. Why do we need gates? Gates are an established, accepted form of establishing a presence, establishing a look and a feel. And so, yes, they want to put gates in here. They want it to feel luxury. They want it to feel upscale. And that's natural and that's normal. I live in a gated subdivision, and I have a gate still even past that. It's not necessarily for security, but it's for a feel and a presence and just an aura. And so this project desired to have those 3 gates. It's not to keep people out. It's not to keep people in. It's really just to command a presence of this is a great product that we're trying to get people to want to be a part of and to get people excited about being a part of. Number 16, the 16th person mentioned a ghetto and this project potentially turning into a ghetto. Nobody can predict the future, but past is always a good predictor. And Mr. Ponticos has been here for 47 years. I think he mentioned he was the 3rd person to live in Sugar Mill. He's never touched anything or had his hand involved in anything that turned into a ghetto. I think that's a very healthy and wealthy track record in our community and someone who is heavily invested in our community. And I would just like to reject the comment. 17th person mentioned utilities and having to pump water because of the water table. We've already examined the water table, the ponds that you see here. This is a unique project for me in that a lot of the groundwork in terms of engineering has already been done. Those ponds that you see are pretty close to representative, should you guys approve this, of where they'll be in the size. Many times we'll throw a pond on saying, hey, this is a low area, we don't know exactly how big it is. But in this case, we had the benefit of soil borings already. And so those ponds are there. Because we have the benefit of soil borings, I know what the water table is. And the water table is such that we don't have to pump, we don't have to de-water, we won't have any of those concerns that the gentleman raised, which is a good thing. And in addition to that, I already mentioned the public utilities are already in place around this circle. And then lastly, the lady mentioned, or she asked you guys what we're going to be selling them for. There's no plans to sell any of these units. You guys already know this. The plan is to rent them. And so I could keep going, but I'll hold it to that. If you guys have anything from me, I've addressed the public comments that I would like to address.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to close the public portion and bring the discussion and deliberation back to the board. Who's first?
I'll go.
Mr. Royce?
I read most of this, and I'm not going to say I read the whole thing. A lot of it is redundant. And these photographs are not, they're photographs of proposed likenesses, not what the real rendering is going to be of a building. And I wasn't impressed anyway. I'm sorry. I'm not impressed with the presentation as far as the photographs of the proposed dwellings, even though these are not the real ones, and they said that this is from someplace in South Florida. I would expect maybe a little bit more of an effort to show us what they're proposing to actually do, as opposed to saying it'll be what it is when we tell you. Along that same line, on one page here in the application, it is references to facades, and the renderings of the proposed units have not been provided. Pedestrian circulation and sidewalks, these are not delineated in the plan. Parking lot design, the applicant has not provided specific parking information. Open space, these have not been delineated within the community. And nowhere in this whole several pages here of the application was the word rental ever mentioned, not once. I came here thinking that multifamily was going to be townhomes sold to individuals. It wasn't until I asked the question that I found out that this is a rental property. Even the individual, I'll call them villas, small homes, I imagine, they're going to be rentals. There's another thing that I'm sure all of you are aware of. Oak Village several years ago became a conservation community. And they paid good money to do that. It cost them about 40 grand. And there's also an annual tab to maintain it, to get it inspected by a conservation easement company. You're paying for that. You're paying for it because it enhances your value of your property. 900 and something acres of conservation easement within your community is an asset. I don't see this community, I'm calling it a community, I don't see this build as contributing to that, and I think it can only taint it. That's about it. I guess you guess I'm not in favor of this application.
Excuse me, audience, please, no clapping. There'll be no clapping. Thank you.
I'm done.
Some people are childish.
I know. Commissioner Bramlett.
Okay, so I'll go next. I would just want to say, you know, the public comment, we read all the public comment. I read the entire application. I read almost all the emails that I've gotten from Miss Cheryl, Miss Burton over the weeks. So the education of your application and the intricacies are there. I would like to say I've said this before and I'll say it again because this is a room of different people. But I take offense to people of the public most of the time, which is misinformation, and I understand that. I don't expect you to know everything. But when people of the public come up here and they want to point fingers at this board and say that you rubber stamp everything, I take exception to that, because if you know this board, if you've paid any attention to this board, this is a very deliberate board. This is a very cerebral board. I've been a member of this board for a very long time. There have been projects that have come in front of us that we have voted down, that the commission has voted in favor of. There's been projects that we've voted in favor of that the commission's voted down. There's no rubber stamping. There's no backstab, no back padding. This is a board that's made up of 7 individuals that are all of different backgrounds and have different experiences, and they make the decisions that they believe that are the best. I believe that with my whole heart. That's the way I'll continue to believe that. So I just want to make it known when people say that you do the rubber stamp, I take offense to that. I understand it. I get it. I know the way the nation and the way everything and the perception of reality is. At the same time, I would like to say that in the past, when we were talking about, we had the one public comment about the Meadowcrest. I was against the Meadowcrest. I voted against the Meadowcrest development, just so you know. I voted against that development because that development, when it was in the infancy and when that development was created, that development was never created with a multifamily aspect as a part of it. This particular application, in my opinion, and based on the evidence and testimony presented in front of me, these areas had multifamily aspects as a part of it already. So for the incompatible and the compatibility, in my opinion, I find it compatible. I think that Mr. Ponikos has done a very good job. He's got a nice plan here. He's doing less than what would be typically allowed on this particular property right now. I would also say that if we were sitting here and that property was just a blanket PUD, it didn't really have a designation, and somebody came in here and they wanted to put 95 houses on there, we would have the same size room of people saying, not in my backyard. It's just a fact of life. I'm a resident of Citrus County. I have lived here my entire life. I'm 48 years old. I moved here when I was 43. I watched the county grow. I remember going to Oak Village. These roads, when there was no houses out there, we were in high school. That's where we used to go drink our beer and have our fires. So all of you that live there, I was here before you. I remember when all that was just nothing but a bunch of woods and we'd go out there and hang out on a bunch of empty streets. I am not interested in seeing a bunch of paving paradise to put up a parking lot, if you get what I'm saying. This particular community has the green belts. The Village Center Road, it does. If you drive on that, I'm in real estate. I frequent these areas a lot. Those Village Center roads, like Mr. Ponikos said and Mr. Wilburn said, that area by the master developer in the plan in the beginning was intended for this kind of use. It was. That's why those right of ways are that much larger. That's why it's that much more expansive. It's a village center all the way around with the boulevards coming off of it. The next thing I would just like to say is that if it's going to be a single owner, people that own properties that are in, and I hear everybody villainizing people that want to make money. Everybody in this room has been in business or worked for someone. Your job and your intent was to create a dollar. You can't villainize people that want to make money like that. That's just incorrect. If it's going to be a single owner is going to want to take care of their property. You know, I keep hearing all the disparaging comments about renters. Renters this, renters that, renter. Many of you live next door to a renter right now. I'm a real estate agent. I know that there are many houses for rent, both seasonal and yearly in Sugar Mill Woods, Cypress Village, Oak Village, all the villages. I know that for a fact. Those houses are rental properties as well. You don't see those properties being run down. When renters are in an area and an owner takes care of a property and they have a nice property and the properties around it are kept nice, people tend to keep things nice. That's just the way it is. It's the pressure. It's the peer pressure from the neighborhood. So I've listened to and I've read all of the public comment, and I appreciate every single person in here. But I would just say that based on the evidence and the facts and the presentation that Mr. Wilburn and Mr. Ponikos have put together, and the fact that this particular area had multifamily in it and it was intended for it originally, and they've removed 2,500 units out of that I will be voting in favor of this application.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Stone?
Madam Chairman, that this property at one time was classified as commercial or multifamily or anything else you want. Classifications that were 50, 40, even 20 years ago don't really mean anything anymore. What it is what's developed there now. What the intent was in the back when the county had 50,000, 90,000 employees, or not employees, but residents. Quite a job, wouldn't it? Doesn't mean anything now. It's what the development's on there now. that the proposed application is consistent with a comprehensive plan. And the land development code may be perfectly fine if you've got a completely blank palette to work on and you're working in a vacuum of anything around you. I'm sure it complies with density requirements, concurrency with sewer, water, access, whatever. But that's talking in a undeveloped area. Okay, it's consistent with the plan. What it is not consistent with is the current surrounding land use development, which is single-family residential. That's what it's not consistent with. And to put this giant rental property in the middle of a single-family residence, I think is inappropriate for the future development of our county. That's what the county is supposed to do, is to guide development so we have an optimal and a good place to live. And I don't think that this contributes to that, so I will be voting against it.
Thank you, Commissioner Stone. Anyone else want to
No,
weigh
Madam
in?
Chair.
Commissioner Barnes.
I'd just like to say that I believe that this project is highly needed in Citrus County. We have lack of rental property now. My only concern is this rental property, should it be in Sugar Mills? I've been on this board going on 3 years, and it doesn't matter which way we vote, the county commissioners are going to go their way. But here's where I stand. I'm 100% in favor of this because I believe that the neighborhood will support it. I'm 100% behind Commissioner Bramplett and his comments. He took a lot of my words that I had written down here. I'm like him. I did read every bit of the public input. I appreciate all the input, but I will be voting in favor of this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnes. Commissioner Bramlett? Sorry. Gilbert, you have anything?
So as the 34-year-old in the room, since we're talking about age, I do agree that some stuff to me was questionable. For example, the HUD discussion and Section 8 and drugs and ghetto. Like was said, I don't see that in the previous properties built and maintained by this person. I do echo some of my fellow commissioners' statements about needing housing, but I also echo some of the concerns about being the one renter or the one owner renter. I'm a little torn at the moment. As someone who identifies that we do need more housing in our community, I think that's a major thing for all of us, regardless of age or income. But I do want to echo that I see both sides up here. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gilbert. Commissioner Facemeyer.
I'd like to, as I sometimes do, not often, appreciate Commissioner Bramlett's comments. As Commissioner Barnes noted that he articulated it very well. My feelings, this is, I do plan to vote in favor of this. That's one of the reasons I make a site visit, is so I can see what the project looks like, or at least the site looks like. There's no secret that this specific site over the years has been retail, 180 mixed units, 95 single. Now proposal is for 250 mixed. I see this as workforce housing. I think the county commissioners have articulated the dire need for workforce housing in Citrus County. New professionals, healthcare providers, and others would possibly find this site or this project attractive because we need people like healthcare providers, and I plan to vote in favor of this. I think it's a good project. I do understand and appreciate the comments of all the residents who came out. However, most of us, including me, came from somewhere else. And I think the people who would rent these homes, you would find that they come from somewhere else and they're just as nice as everybody in this room. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Facemeyer. As chairwoman, I often have to go last here, and everyone's already stolen all of my thunder. Commissioner Bramlett, I want to say thank you. Each one of us is a volunteer. This is a volunteer board. We come here and we put the necessary weight towards all of the testimony that we get, and we read each and every email, and we spend a good part of our week going through all of what we receive and the information and learning. And when people come and make comments that are disparaging to this board, I also find it offensive because we are very deliberative. And we take a lot of time, we put a lot of time and energy and thought behind the decisions that we're making. And the decisions that we're making are simply a recommendation to the county commission about how this board feels they should move based on our experiences as architect, HOA, realtor, construction industry, and other professionals. So that being said, I too am in favor of this application. I will confess, the rental thing kind of took me aback. I was surprised by that. That was not something that was part of the package that we received. So, but hearing both sides, I can support this application. Like I said, my opinion is based on the fact and evidence that was presented, and I can't take a lot of the speculative testimony that's all speculation about crime and, and those types of things. And excuse me, if you will please leave quietly if you're leaving. So I know that some people have said, that this is a single family area. This is a single family residences. I have no doubt that being part of the construction industry, that these changes that were made over time were made according to the market and the market that was available. Admittedly, they didn't see that the market was going to change and that there would be such a need and desire for a different type of housing. And it was planned initially and changed through time, but now is a new time. And I think that since this was something that was always on the radar for this community, it's something that we should permit again. So I'm in favor, and I'm looking for a motion.
For the purpose of a motion, before I make the motion, can we discuss the conditions?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
There are 12 conditions proposed in your staff report. Did you want to go over them, or?
I'm fine with them.
I'm fine with what's in there. I just want to make sure there's no changes.
No, I know that, I'm looking at the applicant, he's nodding at me, for the record. Yeah, the one condition about sidewalks was also including access drives, so I think condition 8 as written is appropriate.
All right, for the purpose of the motion, the Planning and Development Commission finds application number AA-22-07 consistent with the Citrus County Comprehensive Plan and Citrus County Land Development Code, and that this board recommends approval with the conditions as stated of the application to the Board of County Commissioners based upon the evidence and testimony presented and the staff report and conclusions regarding this petition.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Barnes.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Bramlett. Is there any further discussion? Okay.
Madam Chairwoman, I'd just like to say I'm not a voting member of this Planning and Development Commission, but I've lived in this area, lived in that neighborhood for about 6 months. And I think what it comes down to is this developer is going to do a nice job. That's the difference. And I think, we need places for teachers to live, and young professionals in this county. And I just want to bring that to the point is that we do need to have multifamily somewhere in this county. And if we're going to have a nice development, that's the difference.
Thank you, Commissioner Dixon. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 5-2. Is there any other business?
Yes, we're going to say goodbye to Vicki Austin. She has accepted a position as the records manager for Citrus County, so she will no longer be our coordinator starting Monday. So we have advertised that. Yes, we're taking applications for coordinators. Reminder, we don't have a meeting on March 16th, so y'all get a day off. The last meeting, you definitely earned a day off. We will see you again in April. There are 2 applications on that, or 2 items on that agenda.
Okay, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor? Do I have to say that?
Just drop the gavel and we go.
Okay.